Hey, welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about this little interesting knife, really interesting knife here. This is a buck 836 mini Selkirk. Really kind of fascinating knife here. And I think this knife is kind of misunderstood. And so we're gonna try to peel back the layers on this knife today, figure out why this knife is so misunderstood, uh, do a review on it, and kind of ask the question yourself: does this knife make sense to you? And would you put this knife in a stable? I can tell you, I like this knife, and it's definitely going to be part of my stable. So if you'd like to hear all about this knife and why it's so misunderstood and maybe even controversial, go ahead and check out the video. Okay, welcome back to the Fortified Castle. Hi to all my viewers. Bonjour, privet, guten tag, hola, ciao, konnichiwa, and good day to my foreign viewers. So yeah, we're going to be talking about this very interesting knife here. Kind of unusual looking. And it is a modern folder. You can see it has a liner lock on it, thumb stud deployment. And it's pretty nice actually, but it's a budget knife and I don't seem to be able to hold on to it. Boom, I got it. Okay, so yeah, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about first I'm going to review this real quick and just kind of give you a baseline of what this knife is. Then we're going to talk about some of the more controversial aspects of this knife and why I think it's kind of not really understood, but it's a great knife. It's a great knife, really is. All right, so let's start off with the tail of the tape. And what you're looking at here is a knife that is 7.5 inches overall length. You have a 4.25 inch handle on that. And so when you're talking about 4.25 inch, what does that remind us of? Yeah, it's about trapper size, right? So it puts it right in that medium knife range, not small, not large, kind of right in the middle of the knife. You have an adequate 3.25 inch blade on this, and that's just plenty to do whatever you need to do. And let's get right into just the overall characteristics of this knife. So the blade is a flat grind drop point design that has an upward swing to it. Presents a really nice skinning blade on there. Very nicely done. You get about 25 thousandths behind the edge here. It's really very slight. So let me just do the cutting thing. I haven't messed with this edge. This is straight out of the factory. This thing is just very, very slicey. Let me get up the top here. Come on. I got wet paper. And all the way across the edge. Jeez. So it's kind of, so no pressure there, and that's the full edge slicing down. Pretty good edge on this thing from the factory. Haven't touched it up. Will produce curls for you. So look at that. No effort whatsoever. It's just the blade cutting down through there. Very slicey. Okay. So it's 420 HC. That's a good to go steel. You've got a very adequate 12 hundredths of a stock here that goes down to pretty much nothing. Little tiny choil, you can choke up on this knife. That's not hurt me. I got fat fingers, by the way. I don't know why you would need to do that with a little tiny knife like this, 3 inches. But, it's there. It helps protect you when you're closing the knife. You have stainless steel bolster here, stainless steel liners that are pretty hefty. Okay, you can see the liners there, brushed stainless steel offsets here, stainless steel clip. The clip is a deep, look how deep that carry is on that clip. Deep carry clip. Easy to get into. I've not only put this into my jeans, but I put it into my pajamas, no problem. Has a great hold on it. And then you have micarta, really nice sculpted micarta scales on this thing that provide some real grippiness on it. And your attaching hardware is stainless steel also. So that's your materials and the execution of them. Your liners here are, I think you can see it right there. They are skeletonized liners. And that's a good thing because this thing weighs in at a hefty 4.5 ounces. Now that's just a little heavier than what you might be looking for EDC, and a lot of that has to do with this stainless steel bolster and the stainless steel liners. So the action on this is another kind of interesting thing about the knife. It's Teflon, kind of old school. You can kind of see them in there, the Teflon. And a lot of the reviewers of this knife kind of comment on that right there. So when you get this, it is kind of a sticky out of the box, and a lot of these reviewers like broke this down and cleaned everything up, put it back together, and it's not a lot better. And that's because it's Teflon washers. And so all I did is put a couple drops of oil down in there, and I put a drop of oil on the detent in here, and I don't have to flick my wrist to open this up. It closes really easy, no problem. So, the action on this knife is good, but it's not drop shutty. And that has a lot to do with what this knife is. So this knife is not this knife, okay? So this knife is fidgety, easy to pop out, easy to close, very fidgety. But that's not what the Buck Selkirk is, okay? It's a different kind of knife. And we're going to talk about that because there were a lot of videos on this knife, and I watched them. I wanted to get a good feel for what people really thought about this knife. Overall, there are really no negative comments on this knife. Everybody liked it, and but the reoccurring thing is, why do you need this knife? It's a modern folder, and there's a lot of modern folders out there, and when you get great knives like these, how and why does this thing make sense? And so it's kind of misunderstood, and we can all relate to that. A lot of things are misunderstood. Okay, so we already talked about the action on this knife. It's just fine. A lot of people have commented about it's a little sticky. It's really not. It's it's smooth, and that's what Teflon will do for you, but it's not on bearings. It's not going to be drop shutty. It's not what this knife is supposed to be. Let's look at these liners. These are really thick liners. And in a day and age, when you have knives that like this that don't have any liners whatsoever in it, this ZT, it's another medium folder, just like that. You know, why do you need these big heavy liners? And kind of big heavy liners are just out, right? So they used to be a thing a long time ago, not really that long ago, maybe 10 years ago. These big huge overbuilt knives were all the rage, and oh, it's strong, and you know, that's why you put these liners in there. And you know what, they are strong. And but here's another one. This is a relatively new knife, and it's got those big stainless steel liners in it. Now they're not as big as the liners on this knife, but you know, here they are. They're in this Spyderco Tenacious is what this is, and so they're still there, but pretty much, you know, people are going to this no liners on there, or a minimal liner, like where your action is, and then no liners everywhere else. And that's kind of the trend. And this buck is bucking the trend. So why? Is it a big deal? No, it really isn't, right? So it provides a huge amount of strength and makes a really strong knife. And I like that. You know, I can deal with that. And I don't think this knife is too heavy either. Another thing misunderstood about this knife is the handle of this knife. And so you can find a lot of knives with this sculpted G10 or sculpted micarta. And let me open this up so you can see the handle better. And that's not really the controversy. And so if you look at it, it has this swell center on it, and that's kind of nice. It's not the only knife that has a swell center. Here's a relatively new knife. The Kaiser Tower has that same swell center, but you can see the finger choil's a lot bigger on this. Same basic kind of design. And we'll go back to that Spyderco again, and same kind of design. You know, you swell center, and that's because it just works, right? It's comfortable. You don't have a bunch of finger grooves in there. It just works for a lot of different grips. And that's really not the controversial part of this knife. Where it comes from is this right here. So you look at it, it's kind of thin here, and then it swells out right there. And then it goes back down here. And so it has a Coke bottle design to it. And you don't see a lot of knives like that. Matter of fact, I couldn't find a single example. You can find them with this swell, but you don't have them with the double swell that come right here, this Coke bottle design. And the thing about this is it swells out and fills your hand. So one thing people say about this knife is it's unbelievably comfortable, and it is. And this clip doesn't present any hot spot or problem in my hand. And perhaps if you had a little tiny hand, it might, but medium to large hands, no problem whatsoever. And this thing is just phenomenally comfortable. It's like it's not even in your hand. So I want to talk about that a minute. So I'm sure that this is a bark river. I'm sure Mike Stewart didn't invent the Coke bottle grip, but he puts it on his knives, and this is a really big knife. But what that Coke bottle grip does, it gives you a pinch grip right here for skinning. That's really nice. And when you're doing work, that swell right there fills your hand, and it's very comfortable. And the problem is, if you don't have that swell and you're working a long time, your handle will start to cramp. So this is another Bark River knife, a much smaller one, and it has that swell grip. So Mike Stewart puts it on almost every knife he makes. Reason being is they're fantastically comfortable and ergonomic. They just work. And that's why this knife feels so great in your hand. If you're skinning an animal and you have a knife like this, which definitely could skin an animal, okay, nice size, pretty comfortable grip, but it doesn't fill your hand, and there's a lot of space in there. You could see it down in here in your hand, and what happens is this is okay for a couple minutes worth of work, or maybe 5 or 10 minutes worth of work. But the longer you hold this skinny little knife, which pockets well, your hand starts to ache in this area here, because it's having to really grip this knife to hold it, keep it from twisting, which will twist really easy with these flat grips. And that's the beauty of the Coke bottle design on this knife, and why this knife is particularly suited for skinning task. And so that's a thing that a lot of people just don't understand. You know, reviewers today are used to reviewing knives like this that are flat, and they gauge them all together. And this is a pretty good grip on this knife, but this is not a skinning knife. It's gonna cause problems with your hand, cramping, hot spots, the longer you work with it. It's not a bad knife. It's just not suited for skinning. And so that's why that handle makes a lot of sense. So I want to compare this to some other options, some other knives, because one, there are not a lot of real good options out there. So if you look up at the top of your screen, that is the Buck Selkirk, the 853, I think it is. And it's a fixed blade knife. It's very popular. It's very comfortable. It has these Coke bottle grips to it, and it's a skinning knife. The second one is a folder version of that knife, the 836 Selkirk. This is the mini version of that knife up there. And so I've also heard people comment about that's kind of weird. Do you really need this version of a knife? So let's talk about that, okay? So this is a Buck 110, a legendary skinning knife. It's almost 5 inches. It's really big. That's not too big for me, but you can see there's a lot of extra knife there, which makes it great not only for guys with medium hands, but also guys for large hands. And it's very heavy duty and adequate to handle a heavy duty skinning job. But not long after that knife came out, its little brother came out, the 112. And you can see the 112 is kind of in the same category as the Selkirk. And, you know, it's just a smaller version of this knife. So minis aren't really that controversial, are they? You could think of dozens of versions of minis. Here is a Benchmade Freak. And so this is a mini version, the Mini Freak, of the full-size version of this knife. And a lot of knife companies do that. This is the Natrix from Kershaw. This model is a reproduction of the 770 full-size heavy-duty knife that Kershaw produced. This is the budget version of that knife. It's pretty big, but it comes in a mini Natrix that you can see right there. And so guys with smaller hands, or guys who just don't want to tote around a big, huge knife, maybe they work in the public and they don't want to pull out this huge, scary looking knife. They pull out a smaller knife. But also, a lot of guys just find those big knives too big. And so that's why a mini makes sense. And there's plenty of examples of that, isn't it? They're not really controversial. So this mini is really a very logical conclusion of the full size Selkirk, and why it's necessary for guys who don't like to carry around those big knives, big heavy knives. Or maybe you want the performance of that big knife in a smaller package, that you're not out there skinning a bear, but maybe you're on the job and you want a more heavy duty knife that'll do the same job. And so none of that stuff is really controversial. So I'm going to run through some pictures here of what your options are in the modern folding hunter genre. And there just aren't a lot of those. So as you look up in there, some of them are the same old knife, a knife like this, or a knife like this. But some of them are truly modern up there. And I have an example here. So this is a Ultimate Hunter from Cold Steel. And, this knife is advertised for hunting. It's quite a big knife, okay? I like that. Doesn't bother me, but it's a lot. You can see it's a lot bigger than this Selkirk. Well, actually, it's not that much bigger, right? Yeah, it is. It's bigger. And, you have this knife designed specifically for hunting. You have this, it's not a Coke bottle design, but it is swelled in the middle here for the palm. And it maintains that throughout the knife. It's really thick and really wouldn't be a lot of guys' cup of tea. But this is a great little skinning knife from Cold Steel. And it's a lockback, right? And that's what you're going to come into on a lot of these knives that are competition. They're lockbacks. And even on the lighter genre from Buck, your Slim Select line, they're lockback knives. They're not modern folding hunters, right? If you dig that ability to pop that thing out and close it, then there's really not another example that I could think of that does that. Maybe you guys can put it in the comments there. But anyhow, that is the deal with this knife. It's really one of a kind. So there aren't too many knives like this. I can't find another knife that has a swell center like this that is as comfortable as this knife. There are drawbacks to this knife. If you look at attaching hardware, where the clip attachment goes, this screw goes all the way in. I don't know why that is. Why didn't they just make the screws long enough that when they're in, they're flush? I don't know why that is, but on the other side, it's the same way. It's screwed all the way in, and you can see it kind of extends into the liner there. That's kind of wonky, right? The other thing that's wonky is this screw right here, which I don't think they needed that. You have this strong pivot screw attachment here, but it makes the knife sturdier. Without a doubt, it'll keep that. You won't have to worry about that bolster popping out on you. And so I kind of understand it. The other thing is, this is American made, okay? Made in America. It's a really good knife. And you're talking in the $40 range, so I paid $36 for this knife right here. So in conclusion, there's plenty of knives out there today that can fill the mission of this knife. And if you want something more modern, this Recon, I've always said this Recon would be a great hunting knife. and to take out in the woods. It's big, it's beefy, it's sharp, it's slicey, and it would definitely do a good job, for hunting. Or, like this ZT here, I think it's a 909. They don't make this model anymore, but choose your poison, and there are a lot of knives like it. Big beefy knives that would do a great job hunting. But there aren't too many like this. So I think this is really good knife. I think this is a knife that you would like to have at least in your stable. And yeah, when you first look at it, it doesn't make sense, but if you think about it, it does. Buck did a really good job on this Buck Selkirk. And so that's my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. And thanks for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.